trying to build a case here that what we see in Genesis 2:15-17 is indeed a covenant. So we've covered three things, but the fourth is that there's punishment threatened for violating the stipulations. So we have the wrath and curse of God, which are the punishment for disobedience. And this isn't just dying physical death, but it is eternal and eschatological death. He'd be subject to the pains of death and hell forever. And this obviously is coordinate with the offer of eschatological life. It's the inverse of it. It's proportionate to the offense against a perfect and an infinite, holy, and righteous God. So some people say, well, how could God be just in punishing him with eternal death for a finite crime? Well, you got to think about who he's offending, and it's the infinitely holy God
that determines the punishment.
Right.
The severity of the punishment. And so, yeah, that's of course, we realize that the punishment, the threat of punishment, is explicit in the garden. The promise of life more implicit, but nevertheless not less present because it's implicit.
I think so.
Right, because we clearly, and those who've subscribed to the Westminster Standards believe in something called good and necessary consequence, right? And if a finite disobedience earns the wrath of an eternal consequence, it's also possible that a finite obedience will incur an eternal blessing.
Right.
Right. So it's not impossible for the blessing aspect simply because it's implicit.
The fifth thing here is